I'm Jonathan Carter, 34M, the oldest son in a family that never really saw me as an equal. Growing up, my parents, Richard and Helen Carter, made it painfully clear who their favorites were. My younger sisters, Victoria, 32F, and Olivia, 29F. We were stupidly wealthy. I'm talking about a family mansion, private jets, unlimited spending accounts, the whole deal. You'd think that would mean I was set for life, right? Nope. See, my parents had this weird obsession with making me earn my own success, while Victoria and Olivia never had to lift a damn finger. Victoria, she traveled the world, blew money on designer bags, and was basically an Instagram influencer without the followers. Olivia, she bounced from one expensive hobby to another: yoga retreats, pottery classes, personal stylists, and guess what? They never had to worry about money. My parents set up a $25,000 trust fund just for them. Me? Nothing, not a cent. You need to learn how to stand on your own, Jonathan, my dad would say. A real man doesn't need handouts. Yeah? Then why the hell were Victoria and Olivia handed everything on a silver platter? I was pissed, but instead of arguing, I focused on proving them wrong. I scraped together $50,000, some savings, some loans, and started my own tech company. I put in the work, 18-hour days, endless stress, sacrificing everything, and after 10 years, I turned that $50K into a $50,000 business. I was finally successful, and you know what my parents said? "Oh, that's nice, Jonathan. Have you seen Victoria's new Porsche? She got it in gold. Isn't that fabulous?" Yeah, screw that. At that point, I realized something. It didn't matter how hard I worked, how much I accomplished, or how successful I became. To my parents, I was never going to be enough. And honestly, that was fine, because while they were busy dismissing my success, I had built something they could never take away from me. But sometimes the biggest betrayals come not from enemies, but from the people who raised you. I had spent my entire life being treated like an outsider in my own family. No matter what I achieved, it was never enough for my parents. Meanwhile, Victoria and Olivia were handed everything: a $25 million trust fund, endless luxuries, and, most importantly, my parents' unwavering support. I told myself I was over it, that I didn't need their validation. Then one night, everything changed. I arrived early for a family dinner, something I usually avoided. But tonight, I figured I'd endure the usual routine of pretending to be part of their world. As I walked through the hallway, I heard muffled voices from my father's office. "We have to do something, Richard. The bank is tightening its grip." "I know, Helen," my father snapped. "We just need to keep things quiet a little longer. If we can hold off, Victoria and Olivia don't have to know." I froze. The bank tightening its grip? My parents had always acted invincible. They spent millions on vacations, designer clothes, and luxury cars like it was pocket change. And now, suddenly, they were hiding something? I stood there heart pounding as my mother whispered, "We can't let them find out." That night after dinner, I couldn't shake the unease. So, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I pulled some strings, called in a few financial favors, and within 24 hours, I had the full story sitting in front of me. And what I saw made my stomach drop. My parents were in deep, catastrophic debt. They had mortgaged nearly every asset they owned: the family mansion, their businesses, even their luxury vacation homes. They were $30 million in the red, borrowing against their own empire just to keep up the illusion of wealth. Victoria and Olivia had no idea. My sisters still thought their trust funds were locked and secure. But the worst part wasn't the debt itself. The worst part was the lies. They knew. They had known for years. The bank had already warned them they were on the brink of bankruptcy unless they found a way to cover their losses. But instead of telling the family, instead of taking responsibility, they kept spending. They used loans to fund Victoria's luxury lifestyle. They funneled money into Olivia's trust fund, even though it wasn't really theirs to give. They smiled at me during every family dinner, acting like they still had it all. They were gambling with everything, and they had no backup plan. And when that house of cards collapsed, they weren't going to tell anyone. They were just going to let Victoria and Olivia wake up one day with nothing. They would have let me wake up one day, read the headlines, and realize my family had been living a lie. I had spent years being treated like the black sheep, the one who was too focused on money, too obsessed with work. Jonathan, why don't you take a break? Victoria and Olivia are enjoying life. Why can't you? Because unlike them, I had to survive. Because they set me up to fail while cushioning my sisters with millions. And now, the same parents who denied me any financial support, who told me to stand on my own 2 feet, had been secretly drowning in their own reckless choices. I felt sick. This wasn't just a financial disaster. This was a betrayal that ran deep. For years, I thought I was angry at them, that I was bitter about the favoritism. But now I realize the truth. I never had a family. I had a performance to maintain, a prop in their story of wealth and power. They were never proud of me. They were never invested in my success. They just saw me as expendable. And now I had a choice to make. I wasn't going to be the forgotten one anymore. This time I held their truth, and I was going to use it. I should have known something was off the moment I walked in. My parents never did anything small. They lived for grand gestures, expensive wine, over-the-top dinners. But that night, the atmosphere was different, the smiles were too wide, the energy was forced. We were halfway through the meal when my father cleared his throat and tapped his wine glass with a fork. "We have an exciting announcement," he said, looking directly at me. I set my fork down, already bracing for whatever bullshit was coming. "After much thought, your mother and I have decided it's time for Victoria to step into a leadership role in the family business." I blinked. "Excuse me?" My mother chimed in, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Jonathan, you've done well for yourself, but we believe it's time for a fresh vision. Victoria is ready to lead, and we know you'll do the right thing and help her transition smoothly." Transition? Before I could respond, my father dropped the real bombshell. "We've already spoken with several key investors, and they agree. Victoria is the right choice to take the company into the future." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I looked at Victoria, and that's when I saw it. The smirk. She wasn't surprised. She had known all along. And just like that, I understood. This wasn't just some half-baked idea my parents had over brunch. This was planned. I could already see the next steps laid out in front of me. My parents had secretly bought 35% of my company's shares from investors. They had secured enough influence to push me out. Their end goal? Force me to sell the rest and leave me with nothing. I glanced at Olivia, expecting at least some kind of shock from her, but she wouldn't even look me in the eye. They had all been in on it, and they really thought I'd just roll over and hand it all to Victoria? That was their biggest mistake. I forced a smile. "Of course. I'll take care of everything." And right then and there, I started plotting. I barely slept that night. Instead, I made phone calls. The first one? To my lawyer, David Holloway. "David, how fast can we move assets out of my company?" There was a brief silence, then a slow exhale. "That depends. What's going on?" "Hostile takeover, but they don't know I know yet." David let out a low whistle. "All right, let's ruin some lives." I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to destroy their entire plan before they even saw it coming. By the next morning, I had begun transferring 70% of my company's assets into a new entity I had quietly set up months ago. Patents? Transferred. Key client contracts? Moved. Top talent? Already briefed and ready to jump ship. Victoria thought she was inheriting a thriving company. She had no idea she was about to take control of an empty shell. While digging into their finances, I found the real jackpot. My parents had dug themselves into a $30 million hole trying to keep up appearances. And what they didn't know, debt can be bought. So I did. I quietly purchased their outstanding loans. With one simple transaction, they no longer owed the bank. They owed me. My company wasn't just valuable because of its assets. It had contracts worth millions. So I pulled the largest contract, a $20 million deal that was keeping everything afloat. Without it, the company would be worthless overnight. For 2 weeks, I let them celebrate. I let Victoria prance around like a queen, telling everyone she was about to take over. I let my parents make plans to expand the business, thinking they had won. And then, on the day they were supposed to finalize everything, I dropped the hammer. I walked into the meeting room, and they were already celebrating. Victoria was dressed head to toe in designer, looking like she had already won. My father grinned. "Jonathan, I knew you'd make the right choice." I smiled back. "Oh, I did." I pulled out 2 folders and slid them across the table. Victoria grabbed hers first. Her face fell immediately. Inside? Legal documents transferring all valuable company assets to my new entity. The company she was about to inherit? Worthless. My father frowned, flipping through the second folder. "What the hell is this?" I leaned back, enjoying the moment. "That," I said, "is proof that I now own your $30 million debt." Silence. Dead. Cold. Silence. My mother's face went white. Victoria's hands were shaking. You can't do this," my father finally stammered. I laughed. "I already did." They had one option left. "Here's my offer," I said, tapping the last page. "Sign over every remaining family asset to me, and I'll consider clearing your debt." My father's face turned red with rage. "You think you can do this to your own family?" I tilted my head. "You did it first. They had no choice." By the end of that meeting, they signed everything over. The mansion, gone. The luxury cars, gone. Victoria's trust fund, drained. Their entire empire, gone. And the best part? They now worked for me. My parents thought they had all the power. They thought they could control me forever. But in the end, I walked away with everything. And they? They walked away with nothing. 6 months. That's all it took for everything to come crashing down. I had thought my parents would find some miracle way out of their financial disaster. Maybe they'd convince some old business partners to bail them out. Or maybe they'd scam their way into another loan. But no. This time there was no escape. When the news broke, it was everywhere. Richard and Helen Carter, former business giants, file for bankruptcy. Luxury lifestyle crumbles, Carter family empire in ruins. Legal trouble? Fraud allegations surface as the Carters lose everything. It wasn't just bankruptcy, it was public humiliation. The bank seized everything, the mansion, the luxury cars, the vacation properties. Gone. Victoria? Her trust fund vanished overnight. She went from sipping champagne in first class to Googling how to get a job with no experience in record time. Olivia? She took it the hardest. Unlike Victoria, she had actually believed in our parents. She never questioned the money, never imagined there was nothing behind the curtain.